Okay, so the next step, now that I have like my values blocked in, I didn't go through and like overly blend them or make them like super gradual and tidy, because what we're going to do is we're going to change this into a closed value drawing. So you can see I already started kind of like going into my apple, and I'm looking for like the darkest areas, and I'm going to kind of like really block them in a lot darker. And so what I'm going to have to do is kind of truncate the values. So places where I see like the dark go to like a medium value, I'm gonna have to decide on like where a line might be for those shadows to kind of end and stop and then go into a different color. And so I'm gonna look up here, and I kind of see some darks up in here. And so I'm just gonna kind of like make the darks and like the dark middle tones even darker, and kind of start to work them into like shapes of value instead. So you can do this directly on your drawing if you wanted to, like directly from observation with your drawing. You can also do it by tracing over top of this. Okay, so I have kind of a dark here, and I'll go in and I'll kind of outline that as I'm going to trace this and show you how to trace it on like a pyrex dish. And then I have like a middle value here that kind of connects to some of them. And then I've got some light values in there too. Light over here, I'm going to have to erase that out. There's just some nice reflected light over there. Okay, so I'll show you some other tricks real quick. Okay, so I wanted to show you a trick that you can do with a pyrex dish to create a light table. This is particularly helpful if you find yourself doing an assignment where you need to trace something and it is nighttime. Otherwise, I would just tape it on the window and use a window to trace, because it's just easier, I think. But anyway, I have my cell phone with a flashlight here. And then I have a pyrex casserole dish, like the kind that I make my lasagna in sometimes. And then I'm going to put my drawing down on top of that. Right over the light is where you want the spot that you're going to trace. And then you put your new paper down. And so you can go ahead and you can trace over that. So this is one way to trace. Like I said, if you can do your tracing during the daytime in a window, that's probably easier. But as you can see, this does work. It is one way that you can kind of have a light table at home. Okay, so I'm going to go with the window setup for tracing. And so again, I have my original drawing taped to the window first. Okay, I matched up these corners to keep my paper in registration. That is mostly for if I'm tracing one value on here to cut out for a stencil, or one value on here to cut out for a cut paper piece, that I'm keeping it in registration each time with the corner of the paper. Okay, that'll make more sense when I go ahead and I like demonstrate the like stencil process. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna trace my darks. So I'm just looking at where my darkest values are. Okay, and I'm just gonna kind of take a line around and trace that. Okay, so the steps that I did before by darkening the darkest values is definitely helping me here. By doing that on the original drawing, it definitely does help. It's just really important that you're kind of looking and making sure that you're outlining shapes, like enclosed space for this. Later on, if you choose to do the stencil option, you do have to be careful of like islands and bridges, which I'll explain when I demonstrate that part. But right now, I'm just going to finish this in marker.